Well, it is true. Joe Biden is on the campaign trail and Donald Trump is in a courtroom. Joining me now is Mark Smith. He is a constitutional attorney and Supreme Court bar member. Mark, great to see you. Thank you for being here. Your reaction?
Well, look, I think overall yesterday was actually a pretty good day for Donald Trump in certain respects. I think that if you look at the opening statement, which is not about argumentation, Maria, but if you look at Trump's opening statement, he really makes it clear to this jury of Manhattanites that this is really about bookkeeping practices. And the notion that Donald Trump would somehow micromanage bookkeeping practices that were occurring at Trump Tower while he himself was in the White House is really kind of an absurd, proposition. And keep in mind, Maria, to me, as you know Manhattan quite well, this jury has some pretty sophisticated people on it, according to their credentials. You have some lawyers, you have some bankers, you have an engineer. The reason why that's important is those white-collar professionals in Manhattan are familiar with things like non-disclosure agreements, confidentiality agreements, settlements. So the fact that Donald Trump entered into what is really a routine contract in New York City is the sort of thing that probably will cause those jurors to say, like, well, is there anything wrong with this? Because my company does this like every day.
Yeah. Well, what about the fact that the guy leading the prosecution against Donald Trump used to be the number 3 person in Biden's DOJ? He was the assistant AG in Biden's Department of Justice until he left and became an official in Alvin Bragg's office. I mean, right there, isn't that a massive conflict?
Well, I think it's totally consistent, Maria, with this ongoing lawfare against President Trump. My fear about this entire case is this is going to become a Russiagate 2.0. And what I mean by that is that Donald Trump will be found guilty in this case by virtue of a series of erroneous legal rulings by Judge Marchand, the jury instructions, which have not been written, will be written in a way that so broadly defines the crime that the jury may have no choice but to convict because of the definitions used in the jury instructions. And of course, this will all get unwound on an appeal, Maria. But the problem is that will take place in 2025, and it will be simply too late for Donald Trump. The damage will have been done to his campaign because they'll be able to say on the campaign trail he's a convicted felon. And that's my fear. That's where this goes. This becomes Russiagate 2.0, and it's too late for Donald Trump to defend himself before the election if there's a conviction here.
Well, this is a great point, but there's another reason that this is Russia 2.0, and that is because this is exactly what Hillary Clinton did. Let's not forget the fact that the former Democrat presidential nominee, Hillary Clinton, her campaign funded the Steele dossier. And that Steele dossier was used to investigate her political opponent, Donald Trump. And it was all a lie. It was made up. She had no accountability for that. And now they mangle this whole thing against Trump. And it's the same thing. They're saying that he did, but she really did it.
Yeah, that's a great point, Maria. If you think about it, right, the experts in federal campaign laws, right, campaign finance laws, is the Department of Justice, the Federal Election Commission. They look specifically at these bookkeeping records of Donald Trump, and they thought there was no there. And yet what you have here with Alvin Bragg, and this I think is often lost on people, Manhattan is a county. This is a county district attorney. There are literally thousands of counties in the United States. And the fact that you have a single district attorney in one county in this country is really holding up President Trump from being able to campaign for the next 4 to 6 weeks. And heaven forbid, Maria, that this jury gets hung, which means they will retry the case over the summer. And now Donald Trump will have to spend another 4 to 6 weeks, in a courtroom in Manhattan in the summer of 2024 before the election. It's just shocking. But again, this is a county prosecutor going after the primary candidate for the president of the United States. It's a shocking example of lawfare, in my opinion.
Yeah, and another shocking example of it. And by the way, the Clintons said that the Steele dossier was a legal expense. So there you go. It's right. Exactly the same thing. But the other shocking thing about this whole thing was the other day when we had to actually think about and digest Letitia James's claim that putting a $175 million cash bond was actually wrong and could not be used. Now, this was a victory that President Trump had. A $175 million bond in this civil fraud case was upheld yesterday after his team agreed to new conditions set by the AG's office. Letitia James went after the insurance company's credibility for posting the bond. I mean, it's equally shocking here. Here's what Trump said about that. Watch.
It's cash that we put up, all cash. Very few people could do that. And the deal was approved. with the Attorney General. She just tried to embarrass everybody, and she tried to embarrass a very good bonding company by saying they weren't creditworthy.
Mark, your reaction?
Well, what's really shocking here, and Maria, you've covered some of the largest financial fraud cases in American history, right? And what's not here is a line of victims with their hand out asking for money back from an alleged fraud. So the fact that Letitia James is concerned about collecting this money for literally nobody, because there are no crime victims associated with this Trump fraud trial, just goes to show you that this is not about justice. This is not about making anybody whole that was made, that was punished or damaged by virtue of fraud. This is all about punishing one man, Donald Trump. And of course, what's also ironic, keep in mind that Letitia James's argument was that she didn't want Donald Trump or the Trump organization to do business in New York with New Yorkers. So now she's complaining that they went out and got a Delaware/California-based company to post the bond, and she's complaining literally that this company doesn't have enough contacts or relations with New York to be able to post the bond, when she's the one that said Trump should not be able to do business with people in New York. How ironic is that?
Well, Mark, regular people see through all of this. They understand that this is all politics, and they see that there is a serious two-tiered system of justice, two different applications of the law. We'll see what happens on Thursday. The Supreme Court will hear arguments on Trump's presidential immunity case, that to determine whether he is, in fact, immune from prosecution from special counsel Jack Smith's election interference investigation. Trump posted this on Truth Social. If they take away my presidential immunity, they take away crooked Joe Biden's presidential immunity. Mark, how do you think this plays out?
There is a legal nuclear bomb in this case before the Supreme Court, and that is whether or not Jack Smith, the special prosecutor, even has authority to bring this indictment or the indictment in Florida. Specifically, under the Constitution, if you are what's known as a superior officer of the United States, you have to be appointed to that position by the President of the United States, and you have to be confirmed by the United States Senate. Jack Smith is functioning as if he's the Attorney General of the United States, but he was never been appointed by any president for any job and confirmed by the Senate for any job. So watch very carefully about this argument about whether or not Jack Smith even has the authority to indict President Trump. As to the immunity question, of course, presidents have immunity for a reason, because we have a separation of powers here. You do not want Article 3 courts under the Constitution overseeing the behavior of the president, Article 2 presidency here. And there is a real concern by the U.S. Supreme Court, I suspect, to make sure that those lines between the different branches of government are not violated in such a way that violates the separation of powers. And that will be the big focus of the court on Thursday.
Absolutely. So you think we'll get the decision on Thursday?
No, we won't. I think the Supreme Court will issue their decision on presidential immunity at the end of June. End of June. Okay. Thanks very much, Mark. Great to see you. Thank you, sir. Mark Smith on all of that.